So we know now that on Wednesday of next week, the president is going to address a joint session of Congress. But what is he going to say? The White House wants to take back momentum over health care reform. And today, Vice President Biden talked about the upcoming address. Let's bring in CNN White House correspondent Dan Lothian to see what we know now. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Reggie. Well, another candid moment for Vice President Biden. After making some remarks at the Brookings Institution, he was talking about the Recovery Act. He was asked a question about what the prospects were for the president getting a bill on his desk that was in line with his objectives. And that's when he made the sign of the cross, which is essentially a silent prayer. But he got a few laughs, but he went on to explain that he thought that the prospects were very high. And he said next Wednesday, when the president addresses Congress, that he will lay out in very clear and understandable terms what it is this administration wants.
So we're going to get something substantial. We're going to get something substantial. It's going to be an awful lot of screaming and hollering before we get there. But I believe we're going to get there. And I think the president's going to lay out, I know the president's going to lay out for you very clearly on Wednesday what he thinks those pieces have to be and will be. But that's as much as I should say. And the president will tell you a lot more on Wednesday.
Now, with the constant headlines about the uphill battle that healthcare reform faces, the administration is saying that, listen, all of these reports that you've heard about the bad August that this administration had are exaggerated. They also point out that they're confident that they'll be able to get some of those conservative Democrats on board. And also they point us back to CNN's own polling, which shows that most Americans out there do want some kind of healthcare reform. They're not sure exactly what it is, and not all are obviously on board with what the president is pushing for, but that all Americans do want something. So the president next Wednesday will try to fill in some of the blanks. Reggie.
All right, so I heard you say they're confident they can get the conservative Democrats on board. But what about the Republicans? Have they just given up?
Well, in essence, they have to a certain point. I mean, this was something that the president really was pushing for. He wanted a bipartisan effort on healthcare reform, but it's becoming increasingly clear that they're not going to get the kind of Republican support that they were banking on. Even those Republicans who have been with the president, for example, with the stimulus plan, they realize that that's not where they need to shoot now. They're really shooting within their own party. Those conservative Democrats who've had a really tough time, especially with the public option. So the president trying to tweak what they want in healthcare reform, and we again should hear some of the details next week, Reggie.
Is this going to be sort of a rallying cry in front of Congress, or are we going to get a lot of details? There's been a lot of talk about whether the public option here is going to be dropped.
Well, I mean, no doubt there'll be some elements of it, of rallying cry to his message. But, that's really what the administration will point out the president has been doing now for several months. What they are framing this address as next week is that the president will be rolling out some of the details. He's been criticized time and time again for not getting involved in the nitty-gritty, for essentially handing over to Congress kind of broad principles of what he wanted in healthcare reform, but not getting any of the details. With this, we're being told will be sort of more on hands. The president really saying specifically, this is what I want it to look like, and now we need to make it happen.
But I would imagine on the public option right now, they're still keeping mum about exactly what he'll say.
Exactly. They're not totally writing it off that the public option is out, but clearly, I mean, this is a sticking point. Certainly with Republicans, certainly with those conservative Democrats. So, it's looking highly unlikely that the public option, as the president has been laying it out, will be in that bill. But we'll wait to hear the details.